How much do you think that the increase in violence, which I'm hearing it's about 1,500 to 2,000% increase, how much do you think that that directly correlates to the fact that we have an Asian American vice president who's also a woman?
I personally, I don't really know about that correlation, especially because a lot of these hate crimes happened way before. I particularly think a lot of it has to do with calling this virus the Chinese virus because you're attacking a particular group of people. And also the model minority. Like a lot of these stories were not told and were pushed under the rug for news because they wanted to keep Asians to be model citizens. And if a lot of these stories came out, particularly when Black Lives Matter movement were happening, there's solidarity possibility that could happen, which we're hoping to do, because we're more powerful together fighting this. And
Please
not
define model citizen. What do you mean?
a model minority myth. So it's this concept that was basically created way back. So there was basically, I think 1870-ish, I think it's 1872, the Chinese Exclusion Act basically said that Chinese people are not fit to basically be citizen, which is kind of part of the Yellow Pearl, saying that we're unclean, we're unfit. And this kind of created this Asian Exclusion Act, which is like the Immigration Act 1920-ish, 24 possibly, but which basically banned all Asians, which kind of preserved this whiteness. And because of this Immigration Act that basically said that they don't want immigrants from Asia, that caused a lot of issues. And then I think it was, what is it, 1965, because of the civil rights movement, they actually passed another law, the National Immigration Act, which actually allowed immigration to happen, as particularly having Asians who come and become a part of America. However, they played us. They basically were like, we preferred highly skilled, hardworking Asians. So this is where the model of minority started. So they said they want high-working, high-class, preferably Asians. At times, they wanted a monolith, so Eastern Asian, and said that they're the model minority. And if they work really hard to be here, any race or anyone can work really hard to be here. And what that does is basically erases the history of African Americans and slavery and all of the systematic racism. This model minority puts one group above everyone else and kind of uses us against all these other groups and all the history that happened.
You know,
Wow.
that's really interesting. Not to deviate too far, but just really quick, Robert, between you and I wonder if any of that Cuban came to mind of the model minority, of how that kind of goes on in our community too.
Without a
One
doubt.
thing,
What resonated with me was that we are considered a model minority here, where I am. I can't speak about Jersey. You can.
Miami, right?
Miami, where I am. I can't speak about New Jersey. I can't speak about Chicago, but we're definitely or Cuban Americans are definitely the model minority of Latinos. If you were to categorize them, I think so. I definitely think so. That came to mind.
So I'm really interested in this concept. So if we could double back, the model minority concept is used as a way to erase like other atrocities as far as like systemic racism goes in the United States.
Yeah, so basically it says that we're this one monolithic identity. So you get the stereotypes that Asians are great at math, that we're really hardworking, and it erases our struggle. It also puts us at times thinking, if you look on TV, when you think of Asian, or if you talk to other people who might not be aware, they might think of Asian as Eastern Asian because that's our K-pop, that's our Japanese, our
Right.
Korean beauty, all that stuff that we are influenced in media and culture is all Eastern Asian.
Right.
And it erases South Asians, it erases Island Pacific, it erases MENA, Middle Eastern North Africans, it erases mix, it erases a lot of different identities, and it erases our struggle.
I have a
Okay.
question about that, if I may. I was going to ask you, does the A.A.P.I. include Pakistan, Hawaii, the Marshall Islands, Tonga, Samoa, Singapore, India, Korea, Japan, China, Indonesia, Vietnam. Does it include all of that?
Yes. So Asia is a really, really broad continent, but Asian includes people outside of that continent too.
I do not know this at all.
Yeah.
Neither do I.
My hands are up in the air. Please explain this to me.
With regards to that, I don't know how everyone got under the umbrella of Asian. I do know that they're definitely not Black and definitely not Latinx at times. I don't know how, like, particularly. A lot of it has to go with, again, what we think of racism, of calling things categories, even having these labels.
Right.
Like, they're all different categories. And I know that the term Asian has one of the biggest different community groups of people identifying really differently. And Kata, which is the cohortion of Asian American theater artists, is beautiful, where we accept everyone. If you want to identify as Asian, we accept you. And you can be under that umbrella. So it's kind of redefining what that might mean. Again, when we think of Asian, we think of the monolithic Eastern Asian, which is Chinese, Japanese, Korean.
When you say monolithic, what does that mean?
Like, we're kind of like one type of group of people. We're all like have these
similar together.
Yes.
Is monolith? Okay.
Yeah. So you think light-skinned Asians, or white passing Asians, or lighter colored Asians.
I'm 50. Like, I remind everybody constantly on my TikToks and my IGs and here. And the joke was always, and I'm only going to say this for reference. I think this might be part of where the seed is of my confusion. Oh, they all look the same. I can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear that, Daz?
They all look the same. I can't tell the difference. Oh, absolutely.
You did? Okay.
That's a, I don't even know what the word is, cliche. It's like, so from my experience, I know that I grew up with that term, but then I'm not sure where it began. Maybe it was from moving from the South to the North, where there's different Asian communities that are very, to me, at least from, I'm not sure if it's through my education or through my experience, but it became very apparent that there's a Korean community, there's a Chinese community, there's a Japanese community. And if you really pull the veil back, everybody is different. There is that, like, I don't see that anymore, but that term still exists. I know that term still is definitely around. It was something that was like an active learning experience for me, but that is, I'm assuming, still the perception.
Like, I just recently learned, and Kayla, I'm sorry, we're talking here like you're not even a part of the conversation, but I recently learned, had nothing to do with this, but I recently learned about Korean culture. And I don't know how I came across it, but it is one of the most stunningly respectful cultures I have ever come across in my life, especially with their elders.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the Korean in the room, but I'll give you an example of what I saw. I saw a photograph, and I think it was part of a video that I was watching. It was a photograph of a subway in Korea. And Korea has seats similar to the ones that we do for people that are handicapped. So we have our seats for people that are handicapped. Now, I don't know about you, but you go to a bathroom in an airport, and if somebody needs to use the bathroom, they are going to use the handicapped bathroom. They don't care. That's America. So in Korea, they have those seats on trains for the elderly. And you see a photograph of people standing shoulder to shoulder on the train. They cannot move, and no one takes that seat. No one in Korea picks up their utensil to eat dinner until the eldest person at the table picks up their utensil.
Yeah, that has actually got me in trouble.
Awesome. Tell that story.
When you meet someone, you say, hello, my name is, and you say your name, and then how old are you? And then let's say we're all in the same age. So like right now I'm 26, and let's say Daz and I were 26. We'd be like, okay, when's your birthday? And whoever's the oldest, even if it was like by the day or by the hour, the word changes. You use a particular, your language changes, so it's more proper.
Really? So you go to a formal speech.
Yes.
So
So
you would have to speak formally to us here.
I speak formally to you, but you don't have to do that to me.
Interesting.
It'd be a very different thing. I would have to treat you with so much different type of respect, unless we both decide, because of generations are changing, depending what generation of Korean you are. There are times where if we're the same age, they'll have a conversation where we can be more casual with each other.
Where did that come from? I mean, I'm getting goosebumps. Where did that come from? How did that happen? Why don't we have that here?
And also,
You
how
know?
did you get in trouble?
Yeah, because
Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
So like in America, you don't say your age. Like that's disrespectful to ask someone your age.
Yes.
So like I'm like, oh shit. Like they're thinking I'm a kid. Like they're thinking I'm like 12 or something. So like I was like 20, like I forget what age I was, whatever age I was. I didn't ask back, and that was just
Oh. So you're supposed to state your age, like at the beginning of a conversation, sort of to structure how that conversation is going to, the language will change.
yeah. And some individuals I met who are Korean would want that as a proper way of how do you introduce yourself.
What was your first experience with that? Do you remember? Or is that?
I was in London when I did this, and I didn't say anything, and then we kind of like, I believed it was one of those awkward situations where like it was clear I wasn't fully Korean, and I disrespected her, and I did not know I disrespected her until later on. I was talking to someone else, and they were like, "Yeah, you disrespected her by age because she was a lot older than you, and at her age, and then she expected you to treat her as an elder." And I was like, "What are you talking about? I had no idea at all about this." And she explained all this to me.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about being in that kind of a position? Did you feel any resentment? Did you feel any, I mean, what did you feel?
Yeah, I feel that a lot actually in different spaces.
Well, I'm going there. I'm headed there. Get ready.
At the time, like it's uncomfortable. Part of me is like, wow, like I'm disrespecting my DNA. I'm disrespecting my ancestors.
Who I am.
Yeah, like part of it's who I am that I don't know. The other
How
part of
did
it
you
is like,
feel?
Kayla, you're adopted. You can't know everything. So it gives myself that break a little bit. But it's both those identities at time clashing and what that might mean.
Right.
How did you feel when you heard China virus, Kung flu, the China plague? How did you feel seeing a person of such power saying that? How can you describe that to us, please?
I mean, I'm still feeling it while you're saying that. My heart, like my whole body is like getting so tense right now. Like just feeling or hearing it, it's just horrible. Like I understand that people might think because it was the first case of it was in China, so that's why we can do Chinese virus. Like, but it's attacking.
Oh, for Christ's sake, we don't know where the hell it came from.
So like,
Jesus Christ.
It's basically pinning a fault on one type of community for this.
And then goes back to Asians all being lumped together. So what was the phrase you said, Robert? They all look the same. I can't tell the difference, right? So
Right, that they all look the same. I don't know who's who. It doesn't matter. They're all Chinese.
Right. So there was these incidences of even not that it's right for Chinese Americans or Chinese in this country to be targeted either because it was called the Chinese flu, but it even goes to show that Koreans were being attacked, the Japanese were being attacked just for this. It was
yeah, I mean, beginning of the pandemic, Daz knows there's a Target right across where I live, and I went to go shopping to grab things, as you do. And I had a mask on, and I was fine. And someone was like, "Why are you here? Go back home. Like you're the reason why this happened." And that was the last time I went to Target. Like, I have not been to
Wow, I didn't
How
know
long
that.
has that been?
since the beginning of the pandemic, March of last year.
You haven't been able to go back?
I just don't want to go back to Target.
Right, you have not been able to.
I'm like, I don't need to go to a place that I could potentially be, I guess, experience that again. Um, so I just choose not to go to Target. But I also am that type of person who, like, I'm choosing not to do a lot of big chain things or trying not to put money into big companies. So there's this whole ecosystemic company
Right.
systematic issue with that. So I've been trying to support like smaller businesses or local businesses. So part of it's that too. And I was just looking around, minding my own business, have my mask on, and like this group of men ended up being I couldn't really
A
see.
group of men?
Yeah, it was just like three of them. They're in hoodies and stuff. Were basically saying like, while I was in the aisle, like, go back home, like, Chinese virus, like, you shouldn't be here, blah, 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 it's your fault for this. And then while they were passing, so it wasn't even like they stopped to say it. It was like a lot of passing. And
But it was
unfortunately,
directed to you.
yeah, because I was the only one in that area. Um, Unfortunately, I was kind of used to this because New York City, even before the pandemic, getting called like China doll, getting called all these Asian fetishes, just walking down New York City, no matter what I wear, no matter if I'm like sweatpants or whatever, I'm in a nice outfit, you get it a lot.